Relations here.
That's right. It's a real Zoom call. You got to have plenty of distractions.
Yeah, right.
Pets coming by, kids coming by.
Good evening and welcome to a live broadcast of the Grand Canyon Star Party. My name is Kevin Schindler. I'm the Historian and Public Information Officer at Lowell Observatory, and I'm stationed at the south rim of the Grand Canyon, where 58 telescopes or binoculars are set up around behind the visitor center. And joining me tonight is my good friend and amazing astronomer, Dean Regas, longtime astronomer at Cincinnati Observatory. Great to see you, Dean.
Hey,
from a distance.
Yeah, I'm up here at the north rim, so Kevin's at the south, and I'm at the north at the star party up here, and it's hopping up here. We got people up at the veranda here of the lodge with telescopes set up and doing some great stargazing right now.
And then, there's a buzz here because it's just dark enough, even with my computer screen a little bit on. This is the clearest it's been this week. The stars are really coming out. I look up to the right, the Big Dipper is just shining brightly. Leo's over there behind. It's looking really great. And I don't know how many people are here right now, but several hundred already. And the Star Party is such a great thing. It's been going on for 30 years. And it's great for us to be able to do this live stream. And this is a combination of things. We have Grand Canyon Conservancy, and Lauren Cisneros is with us tonight. Lurking behind you somewhere, I know, Dean.
Here I come out of the shadows.
Here she comes.
There she is.
Oh.
Lauren, great to see you.
Hi, you as well, Kevin.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for both you and for Dean and everyone else behind the scenes at Lowell. We have Heather and Dylan and everyone that's working together here to make this possible, to bring Grand Canyon Star Party to you at home, which is so exciting.
It really is, yeah.
Grand Canyon Conservancy, we're happy to support this and really excited for a great night tonight. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us. And the Grand Canyon Conservancy, Grand Canyon National Park, Lowell Observatory, Dean, and all of the visitors here, it makes for such a fun event. We love these partnerships, and these live stream events are really a lot of fun. It's so funny to look at us. We're kind of floating heads of red because it's dark and we have red lights. So it's about the only way we can see. So as Lauren mentioned, there's of course behind the scenes folks. Heather Craig is behind the scenes pushing all the buttons. She's in Colorado. And then Dylan, our master telescope operator at Lowell Observatory, is operating one of the telescopes at Lowell, one of the telescopes in the Giovanni Open Deck Observatory. And so throughout the night, we'll look at a few different objects, including one called M13, or the Hercules cluster, which I believe is visible right now. And this is a great one to start with because there's these globular clusters. Let's talk about those, Dean, a little bit, what globular clusters are. But they're real jewels of the night sky.
Yeah, these are some of the biggest structures in our Milky Way galaxy. So when you look up at the stars, pretty much all the things you're seeing are in our galaxy, but this is a huge conglomeration of stars, hundreds of thousands of stars in one spot. And they called them globular clusters in the old days because they look like kind of globes of light. But as you see from this picture, you can make out the individual stars in there. And it really does look like that when you put your eye up to the telescope here at the dark sky like the Grand Canyon and looking through some really good telescopes. It looks like that. It looks like powdered sugar or little bees flying around a hive. It is one of the best sights to see right now.
You haven't heard? Wait just a second. Keep talking, Dean. I have a question here. Just a second.
So this is the big test that I want to put out there, is that this object, M13, is just barely technically visible to the naked eye. And I've been trying to see it because it's kind of higher up in the sky. That makes it a little bit easier. And I can kind of convince myself that I can see it. And but this is up in the constellation Hercules. That's up high up in the eastern sky. And his main body looks like the shape of a keystone, so they call it the keystone of Hercules. And this object is between the top two stars of the keystone. So this is something that's easily found with your own backyard telescope, or even a pair of binoculars. But I'm going to keep trying to find it with the naked eye too, because it's just barely detectable.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, are you very good, Kevin, at doing the averted vision thing? Can you describe like that, what
I,
that's like?
like something like the Andromeda Galaxy, I'm able to do it because I know exactly where to look. And I think M13 is the same thing where, because the keystone, pretty much where you connect an imaginary line, pretty much where to look. I've not seen the M13 naked eye, but Andromeda Galaxy, when it's up, you can see it. But yeah, you look, the way our eyes work, if you look directly at a star or faint object, you may not be able to see it. But if you look kind of off to the side, then you can tell that there's something just where you're not looking directly. And so if you're looking at something faint, that's the way to do it, this averted vision.
Yeah, I always liken it to those magic eye posters, and I was never good at those magic eye posters, but it's the same kind of thing. You kind of like unfocus or look, use your peripheral, and you can pick it out. One of the other pluses up here is in at the Grand Canyon is that you can see another giant star cluster called Omega Centauri. This is something I can't see in from Cincinnati because I'm too far north, but Omega Centauri is like the bigger brother to the Hercules cluster. It's just above the southern horizon, so we got a good view of that last night up here.
And then, with the horizons that we have, I know it's the South Rim and the North Rim. You're going to be able to see a lot of different things, especially one of the most dramatic things I think to see with the unaided eye is the Milky Way galaxy, the center of the Milky Way. And 80% of the world lives in a place where you can't see it because of artificial light pollution. And so being around a place like this where, the Grand Canyon is such a spectacular place to see during the day, it's also spectacular at night because it is so dark. It's a dark sky park, thanks to dark sky ranger Raider Lane and so many other team members here. It's spectacular, as the first astronomer in residence, Tyler Nordgren, called it. He coined the term "half the park is after dark," because there's so much to see during the daytime. You look down and you're looking back in time. Well, at nighttime you do the same thing, except you're looking at stars instead of rocks.
Yeah, I mean, this is my seventh time coming to the Grand Canyon Star Party, and I mean, the reason why I do it is because these skies. I live in a city. I live in Cincinnati, and we just can't see very many stars up in the sky. And the downside of me coming to the star parties and hanging out with Kevin and folks at Lowell is now I just want to move here and just live here full time. I mean, why am I bothering living in a cloudy city when I should be here in Arizona, like soaking up these beautiful stars? And so this is part of my vacation to come out here and recharge and see the stars up there. It's really so cool.
Well, vacation for now, but at some point, make that move. Or I think the thing to do is have two places. So you go to Cincinnati in the summer to see baseball, have some skyline chili, collect some fossils from the outcrops, and then at the winter you come out here.
That's right, and spoken like a true Ohioan there. Okay, yes. Also from Ohio, so we got two Ohio boys here talking about space tonight.
Yeah, we met out here, but we're both from back east. It's kind of funny how that works out. I have a young visitor here who has corn on his shirt. Where are you visiting from? Phoenix, are you cold?
So Kevin's got
your favorite thing right now?
Set up at the South Rim, kind of at the entrance to where the telescopes are, and he's like getting
where the telescopes.
Like the person talking on a camera. It doesn't matter. They'll just bother him. They'll just bother Kevin, ask him questions. So
that's why we're here.
I know. So whenever Kevin talks to a visitor, I'll pick up and make something up. But
I'll try to mute when it's appropriate.
No. I heard you guys have 58 telescopes there at the South Rim. 58
telescopes tonight, and binoculars spread out between two parking lots. So, you guys are set up on the back patio of the Grand Canyon Lodge, which is just a spectacular setup. And here it's behind the, where the main visitor center is behind that, there's parking lots. And, what I can see beyond my computer screen are red lights. Every red light is a station where somebody has a telescope set up. And then if I look up, the Big Dipper is up to my right, kind of straight and to the right. Leo is up and to the left. It's really just a great view.
Yeah, up here at the north, yeah, we're at this. I don't know how many scopes we have. Maybe about a dozen or so. Is that about right? A dozen out here. So it's a smaller, more intimate affair. But people get a lot of time with the telescopes and get to ask the amateur astronomers all sorts of questions. And they usually stay up here past 11, so it's kind of an all-night thing. And so.
Yeah.
We have a new image from Lowell up there. Are we cycling
I
through?
think we're on one of my favorite things. There's two things in the sky right now that are perfect for Arizona. There's Scorpius the Scorpion, which actually looks like a scorpion. It's coming up in the east right now. And then the Sombrero Galaxy. It's little in the view, but it's called the Sombrero Galaxy because it looks like a Mexican hat, a sombrero. And, Dean, we were talking... We have some common names here, like the Hercules cluster because it's in constellation Hercules, the Sombrero Galaxy because it looks like a Mexican hat, and then we have numbers, M104 and so on, and these M numbers are from the French astronomer Charles Messier, who was looking for comets back in the day, and he kept coming up with these annoying fuzzy things that look like a comet. But come to find out they weren't, and he thought he'd make a catalog so that astronomers down the road would know to avoid these annoying things that aren't comets. And it turns out this catalog, this so-called Messier catalog of objects, is one of the coolest collections of galaxies and star clusters and nebulae and other things. And if you're into astronomy, you've looked at a bunch of these M objects, and M104 is the 104th thing that he cataloged. One of my favorites.
Looks like Dylan's doing some adjustments, changing kind of exposures, and so yeah, you can do different things to like bring out more details in the structure. And so if you see it kind of shifting back and forth, that's what you're seeing him do. But this is a really great view. I mean, this is a hard thing to image well, as galaxies are actually. They usually don't look as good as you think they're going to. Like those pictures you see in catalogs are usually long exposure photographs. So sometimes when you put your eye up to telescopes and you see galaxies, they're just kind of like little fuzz balls. But there is somebody at the South Rim, at least when I was there a couple days ago, that had this gigantic telescope aimed at the Whirlpool Galaxy. I think 20-something inch diameter telescope, and you could see the spiral arms. You could see it was one of the best views I've ever seen. But this is amazing, Dylan, getting that shot. And when you see this dust lane going through, making it look like a UFO, because this is a galaxy that instead of being like this, it's kind of facing on to us. So we're kind of seeing the thick part of the galaxy facing us.
And Dylan just mentioned this is a 20-second exposure.
Okay.
And, this reminds me of our founder of Lowell Observatory, Percival Lowell, who said that, seeing the night sky requires three things. The human eye, or the human element, the instrument you're looking through, and good sky conditions. And we've got all of these here. And we've got great sky conditions here in Arizona. It's dark. Dylan, to image this, is using one of the fabulous telescopes at the Giovanni Open Deck Observatory. And then Dylan is a master at astrophotography. And every time we do one of these, I just sit back and marvel at Dylan Short because of the skill and be able to bring this out. Especially because, he's kind of doing this on the fly. I mean, you could spend hours doing this, but he's just, moved to a different object, play with the system a little bit. He's really bringing it out nicely.
Well, you mentioned the dark skies. So I'm up here at the North Rim facing the South Rim, and also the land beyond, and we were up here trying to figure out if we could see the light dome from Flagstaff.
Oh yeah.
And should be visible because Flagstaff's not terribly far away from us here, but it is so dark that we can't even make it out. And that's, I don't know, can you tell a little bit about like Flagstaff's light ordinances and things like that that really
Sure.
helps much?
Well, Arizona is a leader in dark skies preservation, and Flagstaff in particular, because when Percival Lowell in 1894 decided to set up an observatory, he decided to do it in Arizona because electric lighting was becoming common back east, and he wanted to go to a place that was dark. So he came to Arizona and chose Flagstaff because of the clarity of the sky, the darkness of the sky, and in fact, at one time, Flagstaff was known as the Skylight City because of the brilliance of the stars. Well, 50 years later, the observatory was bringing in a new telescope, and by that time, the town had grown. There's electric lighting here, and the leader said, "Okay, we'll bring this telescope here, but we need to find a dark sky site outside of town," which they did. But there's a problem. Every once in a while, there's a searchlight that shined, and one of our astronomers, who happened to be mayor of Flagstaff years ago, said, "Let me talk to my buddies at city council," and he did. And they didn't want to get rid of the lights, but just moderate their use. And so they made an ordinance, kind of limiting when you would use the lights. This was 1958, and that was the first outdoor lighting ordinance anywhere in the world, right here in Arizona and Flagstaff. Well, jump ahead a few more decades. In 2001, a new group called the International Dark Sky Association that was created to help promote the importance of dark skies and preserve them. They designated Flagstaff as the world's first dark sky city. And Tucson is a center for dark sky preservation. The idea is there. But where we are, Grand Canyon, in 2019 was dedicated a dark sky park. And the work that Rader and his team did, they had to switch out something like 3,000 light fixtures to make it more appropriate, where you don't need light shining up in the sky if you're trying to see a sidewalk. Just point your shielding downward and use the right kind of lights that aren't as intense. And that's something that we really promote. Dean, both of us have done this a lot, of the importance of dark skies. We know it's important for astronomy, but we know that dark skies is important for a lot of other things.
Yeah, I think there's so many guests here that I've run into over the years that are equally impressed by the stars as they are of the canyon itself, and that always. I think the first time that somebody said that, I kind of stood back, because I was at showing people a view of Saturn through a telescope, and then we point out some of the stars and constellations up ahead, and they say, "Oh my gosh, this is the best part of my trip. This is the highlight of my trip." And I'm like, there's a canyon back there, it's you see the canyon and you see the stars better than the canyon, and but I hear that more and more, and I think it's because it's a destination to come to a place and see stars like this.
And you kind of expect the grandeur of the Grand Canyon, even though it takes your breath away, that's going to happen. But I think for so many people, they didn't go in thinking they would be so awed by the dark night sky. It just wasn't on the radar. And when you see, you've probably seen this a lot too. People look up and see the Milky Way for the first time. And again, we're talking about the center of the Milky Way. We're of course in the Milky Way, but when they see that for the first time, and I've seen people weep because they spent their whole life and never saw it before. It's inspiring, and it gets me teary-eyed every time I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's and for folks that maybe haven't been to the Grand Canyon in the last few years, it's gotten significantly darker. I've noticed a big change even since pre-COVID, and then coming back again to the Star Party in 2022, and being the astronomer in residence in 2021. It is significantly darker. So the efforts of the parks have really paid off, and it's one of those things where most places around the country are getting brighter and brighter, but it seems like around here they're really making an effort to, and it's working. I can really tell a difference.
Yeah, And dark sky preservation, or kind of moderating the use of artificial light, as we mentioned, it goes well beyond astronomy. I mean, the darker the skies from artificial light, the better you can see stars and planets and everything. But we're finding recently that wildlife and artificial light really negatively impacts so much of Earth and life on Earth.
Well, now check out this picture. I was talking about the Whirlpool galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
Dylan has delivered. This is even better than what I saw in the telescope, which is probably good because you're using a longer exposure. But man, look at it's interacting galaxies with a spiral in the center. We can see the arms of it. That's a really good picture of the Whirlpool galaxy.
And another great nickname, so many of the constellations, for instance, you look at like these three stars and you say, that's supposed to be a ram, like Aries the ram. A lot of them don't look like a darn thing, but you can see why this is called the Whirlpool.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And here's a question we just got in. Can we see Jupiter and Saturn from the North Rim Lodge veranda tomorrow morning?
Well, so from the north, what we would see if you get up before sunrise, then Saturn would be visible pretty easily. So it'd look like one of the brighter stars. It wouldn't stand out brighter than most, but it would be one of the brighter stars. So Jupiter, though, would be really tough because it's going to be very low in the sky and also very close to where the sunrise will happen. So I know that this thing has been going around the internet last week about the Planet Parade. Oh my gosh, the Planet Parade. It sounded awesome. Where we're going to have 6 planets all lined up, except the fine print of that was 2 of them will be not visible to the naked eye, Uranus and Neptune. You need a telescope to see them. And 2 of them will be too close to the sun, Jupiter and Mercury. So how many planets does that leave you on parade? 2.
Yeah.
And you can see every morning. So for folks that saw the Planet Parade, oh man, well, I hope you didn't wake up expecting to see 6 planets. But you can still see 2, and that would be Saturn and Mars. Those would be the 2 planets in the morning sky. But we're in a planet drought for the evening. There's no evening planets at all to show people at the star party. We don't have the moon up, and that's always on purpose. We always pick the star party dates because of the moon phase, that you don't want the moon around. But having no planets up in the sky, this is pretty weird, I think. But Venus is on its way. That'll be the next one coming up in the evening sky starting late July.
And this fall is going to be great for the gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn. It'll be fun to look at this fall. But yeah, it's a little bit weird because it's always fun to have like the moon, like a little before first quarter where it's not really brightening the sky, but you can really see a lot of detail. Or one of the planets up, but it just means the skies are darker without the moon, and seeing things like the Whirlpool galaxy and the Sombrero galaxy, it's more than just a bunch of smudges. You can see a lot of cool detail, and it looks like artwork. Some of these things we're looking at.
Yeah, that's a really amazing picture of that. Yeah, I was looking at the schedule, so it looks like by Saturday. So Saturday, the star party here at the Grand Canyon North Rim and South Rim goes all the way through Saturday. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we'll probably see a little crescent moon for Saturday night after sunset. So that might be a nice little addition to see a little crescent moon coming up too. And then I've been looking ahead about Saturn. This year is going to be, you'll be able to see the rings okay, but pretty soon the rings are going to start closing up and they'll be edge on to us, kind of like that Sombrero galaxy picture. And it's about once every 15 years, one season out of every 15 years, the rings are pointed at us and become almost invisible. And so this year I think they're going to be pretty closed down, but I think next year it's going to be whenever we would show people, I guess it would have been 14 years ago when we showed people Saturn and you couldn't barely see the rings.
Right. I remember us looking through the old Clark telescope at the observatory, and you could just barely see them, and it looked like an olive in a drink, with a little stick going through it. But then through small telescopes, you couldn't even see that. and it's like when Galileo gazed at Saturn and thought it had some sort of ears, and looked at it again, and they're gone. And it didn't make sense until years later that it was a ring system, and that depending on the angle that that you're seeing it, you can see them edge on, like you said, periodically, and you can't see the rings because Saturn's rings extend something like, I don't know, 175,000 miles across, but they're only half a mile thick or so. And so if you see them from the edge, from that distance, 880 million miles away or so, you're not going to see it unless you have a really powerful telescope.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out a marketing way for when that time was where you couldn't see because you're like, we show people Saturn and you don't see rings and people get kind of mad. So
That's right.
we tried to market it as naked Saturn.
Right. Saturn lost all his jewelry.
That did not work very well, but it got people's attention, but that didn't help them.
That's something we have when we look at Mars, because we've had spacecraft go to Mars, landing on Mars, rovers, and so we have some really cool pictures. Hubble telescope, James Webb, but through a ground-based telescope, it's generally just a little tiny spherical thing, and you don't see a lot of detail. I mean, the more you look, the more you can see, but it's not like the cover of National Geographic when you see it. And so it's often disappointing for visitors because they're expecting, the expectation, the big red planet is just this tiny thing.
Well, and we have Percival Lowell to partially thank for all this Mars mania too. All of his canals he saw and got us all Martian madness. I think he's a pretty good contributor to our obsession with Mars.
He was, and I think he was driven to prove there was life on Mars, and he was such an eloquent writer and powerful speaker that he inspired, some scientists that wanted to prove he was right or wrong. Others thought this guy is making it hard for all of us. But then you also had, writers. Writers often write about what's happening in culture right now, like the novels that came out and the TV shows centered around COVID. Well, Percival Lowell built this consciousness that there's life out there. So you had writers at the time like H.G. Wells and Edgar Rice Burroughs writing about popular topics like life on Mars. And so he indirectly, not intentionally, but helped really grow the field of science fiction and also science fact just by these ideas that he had, that we know today that he was wrong in so many ways in his interpretations, but it got us thinking about it, and he got the ball rolling on learning more about these things.
Well, I got to say, having some experience looking through historic telescopes like the one at the Lowell Observatory, and I look at Mars, and it's one of those objects that's just so tantalizingly, it's like it should be clear, but it's not, and your eyes are playing tricks with you, and I can totally see how it captivated him and how it got him thinking of it, because it's one of those, like, you think you should be able to see it clearly, and you kind of see changes, and it's one of the most frustrating planets to look at. And but this picture, what do we got next? This is man, Dylan, this is crazy how good of a picture.
Is cool. The Black Eye Galaxy, and you can see why it's called that.
Yeah, center, you got that dark lane in the center here. So this is another galaxy outside the Milky Way galaxy. And the reason why I'm kind of like, really giving him some kudos is this is hard to image. Like, you're in the heart of Flagstaff and you get this picture. This is not fair, Dylan. That's for sure.
And this is another Messier catalog number, Messier 64. And it's in the constellation Coma Berenices Hare, about 17 million light years away. Whatever that is, right?
17 million light years. Boy, that's so each light year is about 6 trillion miles or 10 trillion kilometers. And so 17 million of those. What does that add up to? I don't know. That's a big number. That's a lot of.
And that's the thing about astronomy. We talk about, we on Earth we know what a foot is, and we can kind of guesstimate a mile, but a million miles or 93 million miles is just hard to imagine. That's why you do things like scale models, like scale. You can do a scale model of the solar system if you put the sun on one end zone and Pluto on the other end zone. Earth would be something like on, I think it's like the 7-yard line, closest to the sun. That's how far away Pluto is. But the next closest star on that scale would be like in Los Angeles, if you're in Flagstaff.
Wow.
So stuff is just so far away. It's hard to, we say these big numbers, but it's hard to imagine just what that means. I think it's neat to think like 17 million light years. It's taken 17 million years for that light to get from that object to Dylan capturing it, and that's well before our species or our ancestors were around. We weren't even a twinkle in the cosmic eye yet, and that's just how long it took to get for that light to get there. I think one of the neat things about astronomy, and I think to me what makes it so special talking about it at the Grand Canyon, during the daytime, you're looking at these layers of rock that represent eons and eons of time. The further down you look, the further back in time you're looking. And the nighttime is the same thing, or daytime even too. The sunlight takes about 8 minutes to get from there to us. The further out you go, the longer it takes that light to get to us. We're looking back in time. It's like a history lesson.
Yeah, and we've got for stars, if you're doing some stargazing now, you could start to see something called the summer triangle coming up. These are the three stars in the eastern sky. And so we were talking about that tonight at the talk here, is that each one of those stars is different distances. And one of them is called Altair, that's about 17 light years away. Another one's called Vega, which is about 25 light years away. And the third one in the triangle, which is the faintest but still incredibly bright, is called Deneb, and its distance is unknown. It's so far that the estimates range between 1,600 light years and 3,300 light years away. So these stars some of them are incredible distances, and something you can do, you do some time traveling and look at from star to star, and you can see these things that are way far apart from each other and way far away from us.
And that's, you think about every star out there on a good dark night, you can see a couple thousand stars with the unaided eye without using a telescope or anything. And each one of those stars has its own story. I mean, there are a lot that are similar, but over half of them, if you could get close enough, you'd see that there are multiple star systems orbiting around each other. And to me, that's interesting to think about. We have, in our solar system, we have one star, but what if you were in a system that had multiple stars, and those stars hadn't yet gravitationally pulled your planet apart? You would have 2 sunrises and 2 sunsets. And how bizarre would that be? And the tides and everything would be just bizarre. Or, a place that has, Saturn, that has dozens of moons. How many moons do you see up in at the sky at one night? We have one. But some of these other planets that have multiple moons, it would just be cool to be able to travel there and see that.
All right. So speaking of multiple stars, I was thinking of, maybe a lot of people out there would imagine that scene of in Star Wars where Luke Skywalker is watching the double stars setting on his planet. And I was about to say the name of the planet, but I can't remember it. And all the Star Wars people just... Hold on. Where's Luke Skywalker from? Tatooine. Good. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to be wrong. And the Star Wars people, thank you, Tatooine. So that's what it'd be like, basically. It's a very scientifically accurate movie when it comes to double star sunsets.
And Lauren with the Grand Canyon Conservancy is our Star Wars expert for the evening.
Oh, you are a Star Wars expert? Oh, so okay, we should point that out. Because I was going to say the wrong planet that got
But you didn't.
blown up. But anyway, that's all right. What are we looking at now? We got Vega here. And Vega is one of the brightest stars up in the nighttime sky. And over in the east, pretty high up in the east nowadays. Oh, wait a second. Oh, the building's blocking it for me, so it must be a little north of east. And so this is in the constellation Lyra, the Harp. It is a little constellation. So Vega is super bright, but below it is a kind of four-sided figure, a parallelogram of stars, and that's the Harp itself. So I totally understand if you can't make out constellations the way that the ancients saw them. They are very tough to imagine, but Vega will definitely stand out, and I think that's going to lead us into our next object, which is not too far away from Vega. Dylan's working on it, so we'll pause a second till he gets it. But what
I can see Vega and part of the summer triangle behind my right shoulder. I've got some trees right behind me, but what a view!
Yeah,
and I just saw even though I have the glow of the computer, it's dark here, and I just saw a satellite moving overhead, plane going over here.
Yeah, once the sun gets up a little higher, then we'll start seeing the Milky Way kind of come up. Yeah, that's one of the things a lot of people have been asking about is when the Milky Way will rise up. It's still on the eastern horizon, so it's kind of low, and then as the night goes on, it'll just kind of like fold up to higher up in the sky. So that means we'll probably be up pretty late tonight, Kevin, watching this stuff.
Yes. Oh, we got the Ring Nebula.
Oh, yes. So this is really one of the best objects to see in a telescope from a dark sky. And this is the kind of the remnants of a dying star. So it's the outer shells of the star going out. And so a little tiny little dot, maybe you can see it in the very center. If I can get really close to the screen, I can see a dot in the center of the circle. That is the star that made this whole ring. And it's a really cool sight to see.
And it's neat, like a lot of things in astronomy, the name is kind of leftover. It's a planetary nebula, because back in the day, when astronomers didn't have as good at telescopes, they thought it was related to planetary formation. We know it doesn't have anything to do with planets, but that's just a leftover term. Like a lot of leftover terms, like shooting stars and falling stars, which aren't really, they used to think there were stars hurtling through the sky, going through the throes of death. But we know today they're just fragments, sand-sized fragments mostly, that are burning up in the Earth's atmosphere, not that far away. But, it's kind of interesting that we still have those old terms, because it kind of shows us how our thinking has changed and evolved over time, and really how science works. This is the best explanation we have, but as we study it more and we get better observations and better instruments, we refine those observations and get a better explanation of what's going on.
Yeah, and the Ring Nebula here, this is also known as M57, so it's the 57th Messier object catalog. In a telescope, it often looks pretty much just gray, black and white kind of color. Looks like a gray Cheerio or a smoke ring. A little longer exposure, then you can see a little more color come out. So that's what we're seeing here. I don't know, how long is the exposure now, Dylan? If you want to type that in, let us know. But this is a pretty cool shot, though, that you can see I don't know, can you see the star in the center of it, or is it just me? I think I'm making it out, but I got a lot of red lights here on me, so it's kind of...
I can't say for sure that I can see it.
Yeah.
But I'm also, getting older eyes and stuff, and so...
Well, I was going to take the off and get really close. Oh, yeah, now I can, yeah. It's there, definitely. So what this is, if we want to, I don't know, do we want to depress everybody or not? This is the future of our sun. This is basically a sun-sized star at the end of its life. And so this is our future.
I'm thinking maybe we should, cash in the life insurance, because, it's inevitable that we're going to go through this throe of death where our sun becomes a red giant. It expands out, some expansion, contraction, and then that final state is a star about the size of the Earth. So it'd be a lot smaller, that white dwarf star. So Should we just cash in our life insurance now?
No, I think that if the audience wants to know when this will happen, they should send us cash, care of Kevin Schindler and Dean Regas, and we will tell them the date this will happen. Or should we just tell them now?
I guess we can give a hint that it won't be for several billion years.
Yeah, so you got a little time. You got a little time, 4 or 5 billion more years. Then stuff will get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, we'll probably have other issues to deal with of survival well before then.
I would imagine, yeah. There's a lot of other. Well, we're gonna have Andromeda running into us about the same time, so that's gonna
right.
the galaxy will run in the Milky Way. So that few billion years is gonna be a busy time for those humans. That's for sure.
And we talk about these things. How do we know all this stuff? Well, we like the sun. We know a lot about the sun by studying the sun, but also studying other stars. Stars like people sort of go through life cycle. They're young, they're middle aged, they're old, and like if you were from another universe coming to study humans, if you just plucked one of us, you wouldn't know a lot. But if you plucked ones of different ages and so on, you really learn a lot about it.
Well, so we can take questions, right? So if people have questions,
Yes,
type it into the chat if you have any astronomical questions, because between the two of us, Kevin and I have about 200 years of experience. It's 200 years of, in astronomer years of experience. So we can answer almost anything except about aliens, probably. That's about the only thing I don't really know enough about.
And I'm looking at some of the comments we have on our chat with Heather and Lauren, and they're just cracking me up. I hate to say that we have nerds behind the scenes, but clearly we do. And that's just the way it is, but fun nerds. So there's a question coming in. What's each of your favorite planet?
Oh, well, for me, it's hands down Saturn is definitely my favorite planet, because it's just so unreal in a telescope. It looks fake, and I just remember the first time where I kind of muscled a telescope, this really bad telescope at Saturn, and the first time I could use it and see this up close, it was just I'll never forget that. And showing Saturn is one of the most amazing things. So and then add that to the Cassini spacecraft, NASA's spacecraft that was in orbit around Saturn for all those years, taking all the really close-up pictures. I could just lose an hour looking at Cassini pictures of Saturn.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I know Earth is pretty darn good, but if I was gonna go somewhere, Saturn would be nice to see those rings up close.
Yeah.
How about you, Kevin? What do you think?
Well, the same thing. Earth is really a pretty good place to call home, but it's a tough one for me because it's more than looking at it. It's because I've worked at Lowell Observatory for 29 years and have been steeped in the magic and mystery of Mars by our founder who envisioned life, and it was just so mysterious. So that's a favorite one, because of that connection with Lowell, but also Pluto, because Pluto was discovered in Arizona at Lowell Observatory, and knowing astronomers from the discoverer through those who are studying it today, like Will Grundy and Alan Stern and all the New Horizons team, you feel a real connection to it. So for me, it's if I was to say my favorite one to look at, that's different than just my favorite one. My favorite one to look at is, I think Saturn. Jupiter is probably a close second. Although my favorite thing to look at in the sky is the moon, and through a telescope. And part of that is also because not just you can, my geology background, you can see so many geological and topographic features, but also because of the analogs here in Northern Arizona, and the fact that astronauts past and present train here specifically to go to the moon. And so that tradition of lunar exploration connected to northern Arizona, and the work the astronauts did is pretty intriguing for me.
Well, you did mention Pluto, and I have heard it through the grapevine that the great state of Arizona has made Pluto their official state planet.
Pluto is the official state planet as of I don't know, a couple months ago.
Now,
Yep.
Kevin, hold on a second. Do you have anything to do with this? Did are you trying to be controversial and bring back Pluto as a planet?
Nope. Although Amanda Bosch, our COO, and I were in the state capitol testifying a little bit on behalf of Pluto. It was not our idea. Justin Wilmoth, a state rep, had visited Lowell Observatory last year, and earlier this year was talking to one of his aides, and he said it just struck him. We should name Pluto the official state planet. And I kicked myself like, why didn't we think of that before? But of course, part of that goes with that is, okay, is Pluto a planet or not? How do you define it? And to me, I mean, my own personal thought is the idea that it's the third type of planet. There's the inner terrestrial planets, the outer gas giants, and then the outer icy planets. And so a dwarf planet is a type of planet. Of course, there are others who say it's not a planet at all. A dwarf planet's not a type of planet, right? But to me, it's more than the semantics of what we call it. It's inspiring kids to want to learn about the heritage of their state, and I think that's the real point of it. But it's great because it gets these conversations going. Well, how can it be the state planet if it's not even a planet? And they're just fun conversations.
I know. I'm picking on it a little bit. I kind of chuckle about it because definitely I'm a Pluto's not a planet kind of guy, and so but I know that it's such a dear thing for Lowell since Lowell was where it was discovered, and it's. But I don't think this is going to happen. But I did bring my book in case I ran into the governor. I did bring my book, How to Teach Grown-ups About Pluto, to give to her to help her with the debate. But I think it's fun debating it. As much as I take a hard line on it, I still smile about it too.
Oh
so.
yeah, and I think one thing that is important to clarify about that, I think, is I mean, Clyde Tomah discovered Pluto at Lowell Observatory, and there's certainly a lot of pride with it. Not just Lowell Observatory, but the community, the state of Arizona, clearly with this designation. But I think, as an observatory, there's no official statement on Pluto as a planet or anything like that. But I think it's the scientists who, those scientists who study planets tend to call it a planet. Those who study other things tend to call it something else. But I think one of the things for me that's important is it was discovered at Lowell, but that's not why people here just consider it a planet. It's not just a Homer thing like, oh, we discovered it, so it's a planet. To me, it's like this whole idea that Pluto got dumped. Pluto is reclassified. It's not a hierarchy like planets are, better than or a higher level than other things. But to me, it's just fascinating the culture behind it. That this perception that Pluto got kicked out. Pluto's the little runt who got picked on. It's just such a fun cultural thing, as well as scientific. So that's why I think it's a great conversation. Pluto shows in some ways how science works. That you learn more about something, you reclassify. Reclassification is very common in science. It also shows how science is not done, like voting. But it's just such a great story.
Oh yeah, sorry I opened up that can there for you guys, but
no, I think because it was discovered at Lowell is something we of course talk about because that's the big reason why people come. But for me, I think it's a type of planet not because it was discovered here, but because of its planetary characteristics. But I certainly hear your side, and I think it's a great. I always think if the worst problem we have in the world is whether to call Pluto a planet or not. We're doing pretty well.
Yep.
And so, I mean, people can get pretty fired up about it, but to me, it's a great conversation. If it gets people interested in science, that's great. Science, that's great.
I really like at Lowell Observatory, you have a donation jar, a double donation jar. And one of them is you can put your money in the jar that says Pluto is a planet, and you can put your money in the jar that says Pluto is not a planet. And which one gets the most money, Kevin?
The planet does every year.
Probably by like 5-1,
Yeah,
probably.
it's neat though, because visitors will take their picture with it, like they're voting. Voting with your money. And I'll point out that Heather, who's our behind the scenes princess here, making everything work tonight, wanted me to remind everybody, or to tell everybody, that she has a tattoo of Pluto, a PL. So she has final say because it's tattooed on her body that it is a planet. So there you go.
That's dedication. That's dedication. Sure.
I think after you've worked at Lowell for a certain number of years, it's expected you get a tattoo either with a PL or like a Mars symbol or something like that.
Right. And I have often offered to Lowell, if you ever need a Pluto is not a planet villain, to play a role in this little game, like I could be the villain person. You could bring in Taboo and all that kind of stuff.
Hold that thought for a couple of years, because we have our I Heart Pluto Festival every February, centered around the discovery date of Pluto, February 18th, 1930. This coming year is going to be the 10th anniversary of the New Horizons flyby, but in another year after that or so is going to be the 20th anniversary of Pluto's reclassification, and that's going to be a great time to have a debate. I think we get you and Alan Stern there, and maybe just talk about how do we see it today, and what's a planet, what's not a planet.
I'll grow a little goatee and a twirly mustache, and I'll just be the villain and be like, yeah, Pluto's not a planet anymore. Come on.
I'm reminded of the 1965, I think, movie, The Great Race, where you have the great Leslie dressed in white and Professor Fate dressed in black. You'll be dressed in black with the twirly mustache.
That's definitely my style. That'd be good. Yeah. So, but anyway, back to pictures.
We only have 8 minutes to go, because that's how this always goes. So we can talk a little more astronomy, take any more questions here. Let's talk about this object we're looking at, M106.
M106. This one's not one I'm too familiar with. Like, I don't think I've seen this very much, so I can't say I know very much about this one. This is really cool, an obscure one.
There's another galaxy, in Canis Venatici, the hunting dogs, and this is one that I guess we don't look at this as much at Lowell as some of the others, like for the public, because like if there's through smaller telescopes, this can just look like a smudge. So when you have a planet up and you can see detail, it's pretty cool. But this is pretty neat because it's a spiral galaxy like the Milky Way galaxy. But you can see we've looked at a couple of spiral galaxies tonight at different viewpoints, like edge on or from the top, and so you can see how they can take on some sort of a different shape.
Yeah, you see the bright core, so that's where most of the stars are jam-packed in the center. And then, at least on the top part, I can really see a little one of the spiral arms there. In my picture also, there's something kind of fuzzy in the upper right.
Right, yeah, right.
I don't know what that is. Is that another object, or that's pretty cool? If Dylan, you know what that is.
It looks like it could be another galaxy, but I'm not sure.
Very faint. Be able to pick it up. That's pretty cool.
But what you said is, it's a good reminder. We were talking earlier about seeing the Milky Way. We're kind of on one of those sort of outer arms looking in toward the sun of the Milky Way when we say we're seeing the Milky Way. And think of a big wagon wheel. You have the hub in the middle, where it's like the greatest concentration of stars are going to be toward the middle, where the greatest gravity is. And then you have the spokes on the outside. We're kind of on one of those spokes looking in toward the middle, and we're looking toward the galaxy.
All right.
And Dylan pointed out this is from a different catalog. Hard to know what it is. It looks like it could be a galaxy. but not sure what it is for specifically. And
Yeah.
I guess I should point out here, we only have 5 minutes left. Um, and this is sadly how this goes. We have a great team behind the scenes with Dylan and Heather and Lauren, and working with Dean it's always so much fun. And I've been sitting here listening to us talk. There's crickets right next to me. They're chirping away. And then the hum of visitors that are, all I see are red lights kind of bouncing around. I see a screen here and there, a computer that people have, but mostly it's just the hum of people, the excitement of looking at the night sky and looking at telescopes. And it's really a pleasure to be able to share this with visitors both at the south and the north rim.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a good chance to get my red dog collar out that's flashing, so we can. All the rangers have these around their ranger hats, and so yeah, I've been staring at this red light for about an hour. I don't know that's going to affect me much, but
Yeah,
makes us
I,
look cool. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that we look cool.
oh yeah, my light I have only on the right side, and so I can probably look up and, well, I mean, it's a red light, so it's not as bad as a white light, but yeah, I think I'm seeing more out of my left eye than the right eye right now.
Yeah,
But it,
somebody asked me about the star parties. Like, so what are the people like that are there, and and the thing is that you can't see anybody. So like, I don't know who I don't really know what a lot of the people look like. And when I
right,
when I go up to a telescope and I say, "What are you looking at?" and then I start to get the spiel of like, oh, and then I have to. So whenever I go up to a telescope, I preface it with saying, "Hey, it's Dean here," and then they
that's
say,
a good idea.
because
You know, I was at the North Rim a few nights ago, and like you did a program, and I one of our friends with Tucson, one of the Tucson astronomy clubs, he had a telescope that when I was done with the program I could use. I never managed the telescope because I after the talk I was chatting with some people, and then between the lecture hall and outside kept chatting with folks on the way down, and then somebody was asking me where the Big Dipper was, so I got the laser pointer, and that was like a magnet, and everybody came over, and I never did make it to the telescope because we're looking at things with a laser pointer, and it's just so much fun, whether
yeah,
you're doing
I re-
stargazing like that, or looking through telescopes, or just chatting with people.
yeah, I really love it too, and you get to see some the amateur astronomers with some of their really cool equipment, their toys that are quite expensive or some cases homemade,
Yeah,
and the latest one that I saw, I think it was on Monday or Sunday at the South Rim, was somebody had a night vision eyepiece, basically. So we were looking at the Eagle Nebula, which is one of those
nice.
famous Hubble telescope pictures where you see the pillars of creation. And with the night vision on the giant telescope, you could see it in this eerie kind of green color, but you could see all the detail of the pillars of creation. It was really cool to see. So now you got that technology onto it as well. And there's even some people that are doing imaging, especially at the South Rim too, that they're doing imaging, that they're sharing those pictures of people in real time. So it's kind of cool.
And this is a great reminder. If you get a chance to check out the Grand Canyon Star Party, if not this year, then another year. It's spectacular because the Grand Canyon and dark skies, you can't beat it. But also, if you're not able to do that, these live streams are great to be able to share. But wherever you live, you can do a search and look for a local astronomy club and hook up with them, and you can you know, people with telescopes, they can show you stuff. There's a lot of stuff, things online, but there's nothing like looking through a telescope yourself. Or go to an observatory. And the night sky is there for everyone. Even if you live in a city, you can still see some stuff. And so it's really inspiring to be a place like Grand Canyon for the Star Party. But you can do this anywhere. The middle of Cincinnati, you're not going to see as much stuff, but there's still astronomy you can do.
And you can join us. Make your plans for next June, June 21st through June 28th, to be out here for the Grand Canyon Star Party in 2025. And maybe you can even meet Kevin and myself, since we seem to be hanging out there quite often at the Grand Canyon parties. So 2025, come on over and see us. We won't recognize you because it'll be dark, but still, you
Yes,
can.
right.
You'll
Your
see
voice.
our
Yep.
red lights all over us. But yeah.
Well, Dean, it's been great as always. You know, you're only, I don't know how far are you away from 12, 15 miles as crow flies?
Facing you too, so you're
Yeah.
that
Yeah, we're
way.
facing each other. I can't quite see you.
10
But
miles.
but
10 condor flies.
it's been great. It's been great chatting with you tonight. And Lauren is just, you know, one of my heroes. She does such a great job over there on the North Rim. Heather behind the scenes. Dylan, you know, Heather keeps everything running. Dylan, his imaging skills are remarkable. And if you want to see more, visit him at the observatory because he's operating telescopes a lot. What a great team effort. Grand Canyon Conservancy, Grand Canyon National Park, Lowell Observatory, All-American astronomer Dean Regas. What a great night. And thank you all. Thanks everybody for joining us. And we hope to see you soon on our next live stream. Have a great night.
All right.